So we already discussed a few things about the warm temperatures we have had in 2023 and 2024, the reasons for it that we actually don't know completely yet as to why the years got so warm. Of course, there was a big El Nino, which always spikes global warming because El Nino is like a mini global warming. It's releasing heat from the ocean that's been accumulating for a few years, and that makes a little bit of a contribution to global warming, and that should add to global warming because of greenhouse gas increase. But there was also an underwater volcano that went off in 2022, Hanga Tonga, which would have put a lot of water vapor in the atmosphere. There are some studies showing that the albedo had actually decreased. There were cloud changes. Maybe the forest fires put out a lot of greenhouse gases as well, and so on and so forth. This is asking a slightly different question. Is it an indication that global warming is actually accelerating? Okay, so Earth's temperatures has been climbing for decades. We know that there have been some pause ideas from maybe 1997, 98, 99 to 2010, 2012 or so. But Earth shattered heat records in 2023 and 24. Is global warming speeding up? Nature examines whether the temperature spike is a blip or an enduring and concerning trend. Right? So I will skip some of the earlier discussion. It's a very short article, but I'll be even briefer than the article itself. And this is the figure from the article showing average temperatures above the pre-industrial baseline, and you can see that since about the 1940s we've been above the baseline, but 2023 and 24 estimate at the time of the publication, which came out just in the middle of January, show that big headlines were that we crossed 1.5 degrees, and of course there are record warm temperatures, as you can see here, and so on. The past 2 years have set heat records for Earth and surpassed scientists' projections. Researchers are now debating whether the temperature spike is due to natural climate variation or whether it indicates that the rate of global warming is accelerating. So we still don't have the answer. The baseline here is 1850 to 1900 as the pre-industrial period. And let's read off some of the questions and doubts. There have been global temperature spikes before. Why are scientists so worried about this one? One reason is that global temperatures were off the charts high in 2023 with an average of 1.4 degrees C of warming above the pre-industrial baseline. This level of warming is outside the range scientists expected on the basis of trends and modeling, but we know models are always a bit deficient. Furthermore, last year was much warmer than expected. Scientists projected that early 2024 would be hot owing to El Nino, but they also anticipated that temperatures would fall after conditions in the equatorial Pacific returned to normal last June. A La Nina was predicted for 2024, which didn't happen in January. Now, almost at the end of January, there is a bit of cooling in the eastern equatorial Pacific. But when the eastern equatorial Pacific returns to normal, which is cold temperatures climatologically, then the ocean is taking up more heat. So you expect the global warming to begin to calm down. And it did begin to cool, but it didn't happen as much as we expected, says Zika Hausfather, a climate scientist at Berkeley Earth, a non-profit organization in California that tracks global temperatures. Instead, global temperatures remained elevated, shattering more records and making it last year the warmest known. All of us who made projections at the start of the year underestimated just how warm 2024 would be. Is there evidence of acceleration then? Some say that the temperature spike might be a blip in the data caused in large part by regulations covering air pollution from ocean-going ships. In 2020, United Nations International Maritime Organization implemented a rule requiring an 80% reduction in sulfur emissions from ships in international waters. One analysis of satellite imagery published in August in GRL, Geophysical Research Letters, suggests that there has been a clear reduction in ship tracks which are formed when sulfur-containing pollution particles seed low-lying mists. The changes seem to correlate with the broader reduction in cloud cover pinpointed by Gosling's team, which published that paper. And the blurb here is, all of us who made projections underestimated just how warm 2024 would be, which, as we said, it's almost a smoking gun, says Andrew Gettleman, a climate scientist at the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, PNNL, in Richmond, Washington. If true, he says, it could indicate that the temperature spike is a one-time phenomenon driven by El Nino and short-time changes in pollution, which means not really an acceleration. Not everyone is convinced of that. If the pollution reduction were the main explanation, higher temperatures should coincide with the areas most frequented by the ship, says Yoko Tsushima, a climate scientist at the Met Office in Exeter, UK. We do not see that pattern, she says, Yoko. The warming is almost everywhere. So is it possible that the ship tracks reduced absorption of OLR actually spread the warming quickly globally? Nor do the numbers necessarily add up. It is clear that shipping regulations had a role, Gosling says, but his calculations suggest that to explain the 2023 temperature spike, all forms of air pollution on Earth would need to be almost eliminated, not just reduced. This leaves the possibility that higher temperatures are driving reductions in low-lying cloud cover, which in turn promotes warming, a positive feedback loop, because you reduce the albedo, absorb more solar radiation, and so on. What does it mean if acceleration is indeed happening? Scientists have already determined that some acceleration is happening, in part because governments are cleaning up air to improve public health. So air pollution in the beginning will warm the temperatures because you are removing solar dimming and reduced solar at the surface, but you have huge co-benefits in terms of public health. Climate researchers include this in their model of future temperatures, but if the climate system is entering a vicious cycle of warming, the severe effects that have long been projected, such as extreme storms and temperatures that could impact migration and food production, will arrive sooner than expected if we are indeed accelerating. Scientists have learned a lot about Earth's climate system over the past several decades, but frustrating uncertainties about future warming this century remain. Frustrating uncertainties remain, okay? One potential upside of the temperature spike is that it adds to a growing database, helping scientists to improve their models, Gosling says. The next couple of years probably will be crunch time in terms of further narrowing down where we are headed, he adds, okay? So basically, uncertainties about whether 2023-24 were just part of the natural variability adding to global warming in terms of El Nino, or human actions like reducing pollution and ship emissions, etc., were a part of it. We already mentioned volcanoes and what else? Maybe wildfires adding greenhouse gases and so on. But ultimately, we are still kind of struggling with this.